Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Jake Travis from the Hoggatt Project. Yes, you have finally found your way into the Fox Den for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. Yeah, I have been sleeping for so long and I do need to replenish myself. Ooh, thank you for allowing me to feed. Now that the shackles have been released by Mr. Travis, it is once again time for the Hoggatt Project and the Midnight Society to take a walk into the darkness.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf, and everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night, yes, welcome back to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. I see you found your way through the darkness and into the Fox Den around the late night fire once again. Tonight we have Jake Travis, a new host and guest, hanging out with us as we burn the midnight timber to stay warm and keep away what lurks in the darkness. Jake, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing all right. How you doing, StarFox?
Excellent. Glad to finally link up with you. Been following you on YouTube for a bit now, so excellent to get a chance to link up and just been editing and, repeat, bro. What about you?
I really love editing and getting out there and filming and stuff, but I've been struggling to get back to it. So I've just been caught up with a bunch of other stuff in life, and I'm just about ready to, give my all. So yeah, Jake Travis, the Hoggatt Project, and all my stuff is on YouTube.
Great stuff right there, man. I love it. And I actually, like I said, have used one of your encounters numerous times just to show an example of how things that don't have to be cryptid based are terrifying. And the actual encounter is the one about the camo person in your camp, man. And that's some pretty gnarly stuff right there. And people always want to, click on things for the clickbait, like the crazy gnarly things that everyone knows. Well, everyone logically knows has no sort of scientific proof or any sort of clarity behind it. And then I'm like, but here is an instance where you have a person in somebody's dang camp in the middle of nowhere and you want nightmare fuel. Well, there's some nightmare fuel. It's not a werewolf. It's not a dogman. It's not some sort of Wendigo. No, it's some, what the heck? Who knows what person's doing in your camp, man? So that's like a pretty messed up instance, bro.
Yeah, and you speak of like the clickbait, and it makes me think of like all the shark attacks, like shark attack caught on camera, and they have like this giant shark, somebody halfway getting swallowed, and you're like, where is this? It's never in there. So yeah, try not to do that. But yeah, this was like a real deal with the person And I wouldn't have thought that too, because I'm, interested and thinking like the things out there is like maybe it's going to be some kind of UFO I see, or a Bigfoot, or Sasquatch, yeah, or a bear or cougar, or some kind of animal, but you don't really. It's especially in my case, I wouldn't expect to see another human because I travel far enough away from everybody to avoid that. So yeah, this is definitely unexpected, to say the least.
Yeah, I can only imagine, man, because I actually have a really good friend of mine and one of my hosts from the West Coast as well. And I was telling her about that. And she actually would love to pop in sometime and speak to you and myself as well. It'd be cool to get her on here too, because she was just mortified. She is a Sasquatch researcher that's having some pretty interesting interactions, on her property and stuff. Great woman. Her name's Barb Hartman, but she, goes out in the woods and stuff and just enjoys hiking in nature. And I was just telling her, be careful and such. And I told her your encounter and some other stuff. She was just like, what the heck? And yeah, it just goes to show you. That's why I believe when people are missing, because we have a disturbing linkage of where people are going missing and also where these cave systems are and the national forest and such. And then we have, well, strange vocalizations. We have baboon tracks in North America, very interesting. We have hyena tracks, very interesting. And then we have these also unknown tracks that no one can verify yet, even our master tracker. We have, like I had mentioned, the very strange vocalizations that don't fall into known predators in areas or known animals in general. So, okay, that's all scientific based aspects right there, which is what I'm big into. And every year, anywhere from 1,100 to 2,400 people just go missing. 5% of those people are never found again. And there's obviously something occurring in our national forests. I believe there's a lot, and it would take a whole bunch of episodes for me to fully dive into where I stand on that. But if you are ever interested, or anybody else, you can definitely see it in some of my latter episodes, and I will most likely be touching base on it again. But it's not just people having misfortunes, that is a portion of it. It's not just known predators, that is also a portion of it. There are people that are disturbing, sick individuals that are also involved in this. And I encourage anyone out there, it's not necessarily enjoyable because you are witnessing horrendous things that have occurred, but on Netflix, Hulu, and I believe Max, they all have great documentaries about how they caught really disturbing individuals. And a ton of these people really enjoyed national parks and stuff because of the isolation. All right. Is that everything? No. Now, do I believe there is something else occurring? Yes, because you have people that are reporting very strange things they're seeing, which human testimonial isn't always the best. And do I doubt what they saw? Some of the cases because of the people's historical background, where you're like, yeah, you're sketchy. But then others, yes, I believe they believe what they saw, but I wasn't there. So I don't know if they truly saw what it is they saw. But I do know that at points in time, there were hyenas up here, which fall into line to a lot of things people are seeing. There were also extremely large baboons that existed at points in time called the Dinopithecus, and they look just like the devil monkeys, the Gugwe, and the baboon dogman. So I believe a little bit of everything is going into this, and Sasquatch, in my eyes, has already been proven enough by brilliant minds that it is pretty much irrefutable. The parts now are, trying to plug in. Is it more primitive human and woman? Is it more ape, like the Gigantopithecus? That's where they're trying to figure out. They do know something is out there. Okay. Now, when it comes to the term Dogman, right? Well, the Dogman is just like Linda Godfrey, rest in peace, my friend, the first person to really dive into the Beast of Bray Road and also really get the clarity to the Dogman topic. She even said herself that it's not really a good terminology for it because I also don't really believe it has to be canine. Okay, if someone saw a hyena, it looks canine-ish, has no relation to a canine whatsoever. It's related to civets, mongooses, ferrets, no relation to canines. Baboons, same thing. Elongated snouts, pointy ears. Some of them have like glowing eyes, elongated fangs. Same thing, no relation to canines or anything. And bears, again, at a point in time, yes, there was relation between bear and canines because you had the bear dogs, the Amphicenoidae, also the Amphicenoidoids, but that's a long time ago when that all split off. So I think there's, a lot going on with everything, but the facts are people are missing. Facts are it's near cave systems, and the facts are it's in the national forests. And how do you feel about that whole entire topic?
Oh yeah, there's a lot that you just went over there, and yeah, there's a lot of things I could say. As far as the cave systems go, I have had my own cave experience that I can't to this day. It was Ape Caves, which is like a part of Mount St. Helens over in that area. And I just remember we had a friend and I, we'd never been there before. And so, like, we somehow skipped over the main entrance and we walked on top of the cave system all the way to the back. And then there's some kind of like hole that people crawl out of, and that's how you end the cave trip, apparently. So we were over there. We decided to do the cave backwards. We crawled in, and I just remember we were like somewhere halfway through, and there wasn't many people. In fact, at this point in time, there was nobody else. And I said, "Hey, man, let's pretend like maybe our headlamps went out or whatever, and see, just like get yourself orientated right here and see how far you can go before you get completely turned around." Right. And so we both like shut our headlamps off, and less than, I don't know, 2 minutes later, I was up against the wall. And I think he just stayed put. He didn't even try, but I was like, I'm going to walk straight like 10 feet. And somehow I turned straight into the wall. So it kind of like reminded me of like if you're swimming with your head down without looking, how like your right arm is stronger or something, and you just kind of like slowly veer off your path when you think you're doing good. But anyway, so we were doing that, and I was like laughing, like I could do better, right? I'm going to try this one more time. And so we shut the lamps off again, and it's, pitch black. You can't see anything. You're in a cave. And all of a sudden we start hearing some clanking noises. And I'm thinking that's odd. And then I'm like, oh, it sounds like metal stairs. I'm like, okay. Then we see off in the distance there's like a faint glow. And we're like, it's gonna be weird if like some other people hiking through this cave see two guys sitting here in the dark. So maybe we should turn the headlamps back on and continue following this cave back out. And so as we do that, here comes the people that we heard clanking down the steps. And it was a guy and a girl, and the girl was in a red dress, and the guy had like a suit and one of those like gangster like 40s era hats. And so they just didn't look like they were in the right time, and they walked by us just with like this blank stare, like they were staring straight ahead, no hi, hello, nothing like that. And I kind of like wait to make eye contact before I say hello, but they never did that, so I didn't say it either. And they just walked by us, and we walked by them, and then we're like, that was strange, and like, oh, anyway, we keep hiking down this cave, expecting to see those metal stairs that we just saw. And no metal stairs. We wrap a corner, still no metal stairs, no other people. We wrap another corner. And like 15 minutes later, we finally reach these metal stairs that we heard. So that is like the most baffling part to me. Like I was trying to think like maybe seeing some lady and a man dressed like this, they went down to the cave for like some kind of like portrait or something like that, like a dress up. But there was no photographer or lights or anything. It was, just them. And the fact that the stairs, like we heard the clanking and they were right there, like immediately after the clanking stopped. So I don't know how you explain that, but that's my cave story.
That's pretty creepy stuff right there. And caves are a really gnarly place because, again, it's right by where everyone is going missing. And I do know short-faced cave bears and cave hyenas spend around 90% of their time in caves. And they would come out, get their food, and then go back in. And recently in Saudi Arabia, in a lava tube, the Smithsonian stumbled upon, well, thousands of human and animal bones that had been pulled in there by hyenas. Well, that is like spotted hyena behavior because the rest of hyenas are singular. They don't really roll in packs and they're scavengers, but spotted hyenas are absolutely savage. They roll in massive packs and they hunt. They have like a 90% success ratio too. So what are those type of hyenas doing in Saudi Arabia? And again, cave systems. So the encounter you just spoke about in general, super creepy. But then just in my mind, I'm just thinking of you being in an area that could just be, well, in the heart of a big cave bear or hyena's territory. And just all of that in general is pretty gnarly to think about for sure, because I really think that's what's happening with a lot of these people. I'm not saying it's short-faced cave bears and hyenas, but I do know they're in the caves. But let's say it was a cave hyena. It comes out, and again, they're going to be in packs. So say you and I are walking, they come out, they attack us, and they are usually going right for the head, skull crushing. So they will remove your livelihood very quickly, and you will be incapable of doing anything because you no longer exist, and they drag you into the caves. So it wouldn't really be a big struggle either. And also, people don't really go into cave systems. I believe our spelunker said only 10% of cave systems actually reattach to the surface, which is super gnarly. So, man, that's some nightmare fuel right there, dude.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that 10% of the surface, because I've never been to this cave before. I don't really do research ahead of time. I'm more of somebody that's just like sporadic or whatever. I'm like, I'm gonna go explore. And so I found a cave that we could walk through, and I was like, that's good enough for me. And when we actually got to the middle stairs, the cave kept going the other way for a little bit, and apparently it's like some kind of I want to say like a short version of the cave. Like if you're with somebody that doesn't want to do the full mile and a half, you only want to do half a mile, then you go that way. And so we came from the other way. We did the mile and a half, and we're like, might as well just see what the other side's about. And so we do the extra half a mile, and there's a part where you can climb up on the rocks, and then you can crawl on your stomach. And I'm like, heck yeah, I'm gonna do that. And I start to do this, and I don't even think about it until my friend says something like, "Oh man, I would never do that. I'd feel claustrophobic." And as soon as he said that, I was like, "Yeah, I want out of here," But before that, I could see it looked like it opened up, and so I'm like, if I just crawl for a little bit, it opens up, and then maybe there's something cool back here. Well, I'm glad I didn't, because I later found out that there's no opening. If you're really small, like a kid, then you could probably crawl back in there and sit up. But there wasn't like anywhere, like if you did get claustrophobic, to kind of like sit up and breathe and gather your thoughts or whatever. So, yep, I'm glad he made that comment. It was for a reason. We turned around, we got out of there, and then when we reached the surface, there actually was a kid that went missing. And we stuck around to find out like any details we could to see if we could help. And then like 15 minutes later, they said they found him. He got separated from his family, and somebody spotted him. So yeah, no hyena got him, thankfully, and everybody was safe.
That's definitely good. Don't want to be in the jaws of any sort of animal, that's for sure. But just the thought of being lost in a cave is totally creepy as heck. And speaking on the reference of being in the jaws of an animal, recently there was a large brown bear. I don't know if somebody had hunted it or if it was causing issues, but either way, it was unalived. And when they were looking at it in between its shoulder blades, they saw something strange. And when they looked more closely to it, it was a large hunting knife that had been jammed in there. And it was jammed in so far that the bone and muscle had healed all around it because it had been in there for so long. And they were like, wow, this was literally the last efforts of this individual before they were being consumed to try to discourage this bear from consuming them. So it's just nightmare fuel to think about that, because I feel like a lot of people, when they go out in nature, don't really have a grasp on reality and think that it's humans terms when you're out there, but it's not. They seem to think that the bear or the wolf is evil because it attacked their dog or someone they loved and unalived them. But no, that's not how it works. It's evil because that's what people put a spin on it, but a bear doesn't put a spin on it like that. It doesn't make it evil. It's just trying to survive. And for thousands of years, humans have been on the prey list. When you go into nature, you're on the list, like our tracker says. I mean, it's reality. So when you're in the city, sure, you have to deal with other humans being insane and stuff. But when you go out in nature, you are in an area where just because we think we're the top species doesn't work like that. I mean, a bear is going to look at us and be like, all right, well, that seems to be a lot easier of an opportunity than this moose over here. So it is pretty gnarly for sure. And how do you feel about the whole Dogman topic, I guess? Have you ever heard anything about it? Like, are you familiar with Linda Godfrey and, like, the North American Dogman Project and Monster Quest and stuff, or is it something that you've only recently heard of?
I was big into all this stuff when I started having my own encounters or strange things happening, and then I started diving more into it. And I definitely have heard of Dogman, but I don't think I've really followed up too much on it. I've more been like uh, looking for the Sasquatch, where I would spend every ounce of my free time. Even on like a day, I'd pull a 10-hour shift and then I'd go straight up to the mountains and then come back with no sleep, just so I could like increase my chances of like a sighting or an encounter. Uh, but yeah, it's I remember what kind of like one really creepy example I can think of when I was young. Like I believe I was what, like ninth grade, so what are you, like 15 or something like that? And my friend had had some bottle rockets on him, and I don't think it was like New Year's or Fourth of July or anything like that. So we were just walking down to this dead end road that goes on the back of this lake that nestles between a bog area. And we're just like walking down, we're lighting off fireworks, and I remember it was my turn lighting off the bottle rocket, and he's like, quiet, quiet. I already lit the fuse, and I was like, what? And I throw it like you do, and then and it pops, and now we're trying to like listen to what he's talking about, and I kid you not, the best way to describe it is it sounded like a baby rattle. And I was like, why? It's dark. We're back here, like next to a bog in between that and the lake, and we're hearing a baby rattle coming from like I'd say about 150 feet away near the water's edge through the woods. And we both kind of like when we hear it, we like just sit there, you know, still for like less than 3 seconds after, and then it does it again, and it's literally somehow moved 100 feet right to the edge of the tree line that fast. And it's that baby rattle, or another way to maybe describe it is like a scraping out of the bottom of a can with a metal spoon or something. That would be the two things I can think of that closely resembles what we heard. But he took off right after that second one. He just took off running, and he's faster than me. And I just remember thinking, this is it. If I don't catch up to him or outrun him, like I'm gonna be the one that gets eaten here. But thankfully, we both got out of there. Never found out what it was. Never saw anything. Just super strange. And that was like my fishing spot too. And it didn't stop me from going down there. And I actually saw a cougar down there one time, running down the road right towards my spot, and I was just like, oh, that's cool. And I just went down there anyway. But other than that, that was just some weird like one-off thing that I just can't explain. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, that's some pretty creepy stuff all right there. Like you said, I mean, you being out there in the wilderness like that is why I find it super intriguing, because you're able to be in areas and such that individuals like myself aren't able to have access to. I mean, I'm a journalist and such, so I crunch, numbers and missing people in areas, and I ping it on maps, etc. But you actually really get out there and, well, put your hands on trying to figure out what's going on. And you had mentioned earlier that you dive more potentially and interest wise into the Sasquatch and such, which is definitely something that a lot of my hosts and friends find very interesting as well. And I do think that they are involved as well in a nefarious way with missing people. And the reason I say that is a lot of the indigenous cultures don't speak highly of Bigfoot. Some of them do, but some don't. And also, there's even lores about battles. I mean, the Choctaw have a lore about how they tricked the Sasquatch into getting into a confrontation with these dog people, more or less, to allow the Choctaw to escape the area, but also because these Sasquatch were coming in and taking women and children and livestock during the night. So interesting stuff. But when it comes to, like I said, the Dogman, I mean, we're talking about 290 BC is when it's first really mentioned. I mean, Alexander the Great, Herodotus, and Ctesias, and all these people speak about it. And also, you have the Egyptians, and you have the Aztecs, you have the Mayans, you have the country of India, you have the Chinese, you have the Japanese. They all speak of these. And it's super interesting because it is done and mentioned before there's any sort of mentionings of Sasquatch and such. So that's why I find it super interesting. But how do you feel about them being nefarious, the Sasquatch? Do you feel like you've only had kind encounters? Because some of my friends, say that the encounters that they've had seem okay, but then when they stop feeding them or something, it ends up becoming more negative. But then I've heard others feeling like they were going to be maybe unalived.
Yeah, that's a good point. That yeah, nefarious. I believe they're a lot like humans. My brother says the same thing. Is that basically, and this is funny because it's like basically if you want a good reaction, you got to just be minding your own business and not like disturbing them or like trying to get a rise out of them. But it's kind of inevitable because we're so impatient. Like I want to see one now, and so you're out there and you're banging sticks on the trees and you're making whoops and all these other things that like when you stop and think about it, you're like, yeah, you're gonna get a bad reaction because they're just like this guy's annoying. So I've heard like they don't like alcohol, they don't like guns, and I've actually heard fires as well because a friend of mine he was having a fire and it was kind of windy and it just he said like the wind blew it and it touched some grass like around and it just started spreading real quick. Luckily, he caught it and he was able to stomp it out. But right at that time, he had heard some huge howl from down below. So it was like as if they knew, like, oh, this human's about to catch the forest on fire. So, yeah. So for me, like when I was younger, and I was really excited and I just get out there as much as I could, I would try not to be annoying and aggressive, but there's times when you're just like, well, nothing's happening. I'm gonna see if I get a reaction anyhow. And so yeah, I believe you can kind of get a handful of both depending on what you're doing and where you're at and all that. So shooting guns, I know they don't like that, and I've heard numerous stories of people that were shooting and then they got chased down the mountain. Uh, but yeah, I can't. There was only one negative experience that I had that really scared the crap out of me, and we were. It was like winter time. I believe this was 15 years ago now, and we were following like there's only one other set of tire tracks that was like 7 miles up this. The end of it is 7 miles, so we went the full 7 miles, and then it goes a little bit further and we followed the truck tires like, hey, if they can do it, we can do it. And eventually we got to a part where we're like, all right, we're gonna park and get out and walk. And we started seeing there's these footprints that were following alongside. So it's like, okay, somebody else they got out, they walked, they got back in, and then the footprints would stop. And you're like, all right, that's strange. And now I'm thinking, all right, it's somebody playing a joke. They're sitting in the back of the tailgate of a truck or something, and they're hopping out, they're walking, and then they're hopping back in, and then they get 50 feet up the road, they hop back out, and there's like 6 inches of snow on the ground, maybe a little, maybe about eight to 12 at most, and so it's like powder the road on both sides, and they're like medium growth, not old, not young, but yeah, about medium. And it's it's beautiful, like with all the snow really like lights the way, and you don't need headlamps. Just the thing that made it strange was the footprints. So you see there's like kind of like a big like you'd say like a turnaround area and the road stops, right? And that's where the truck obviously turned around and the footprints kept going. So we followed the footprints, and this is where it gets even more bizarre. Is now there is no tire tracks for these people to sit in the back of the tailgate, and yet they're still doing the same thing. It's like a man's footprints, and they're not going off to the side of the road. It's just as if they just jumped 50 feet, or not even because the prints are normal. They're not like uh, stressed out or deepened or anything like that. So it was like they teleported, picked back up, and we're just like, gosh, this is so odd. And then like a quarter mile of following them, they just turned down the side of this ravine and dropped down about 100 feet, and then you see this huge like scuffled area, like just snow disturbed, a bunch just everywhere. And you're like, why would they go down there? And I remember my friends like, I don't know, let's get out of here. And so I'm like, yeah, I agree. Let's go. And so we turn around, and then we only got like maybe a minute back down the road. And this is where we hear like this really guttural, low sound coming from the tree line off to our left. And it starts out super low and it comes up to like a medium type sound, like somewhere you could say like around a human range. And then it stops. And then like 2 seconds later, it picks back up and it goes into this really high squeal pitch. And that's when he's like, let's go, let's go. And he's walking. I was like, you don't want to see what that is? And he was like, no, we got to get out of here. And so that's, I guess what I'm getting at is like, that was kind of like a warning, I guess is the way I look at it. If it was a Sasquatch, I don't know what else would make some strange noise like this I've never heard before. But it definitely wasn't saying, hey, you're welcome. It was saying, get out of here. But still, me wanting to see, believe, I would have probably gone in there had he agreed to. So, yeah, it's like when you're with other people, you kind of have that courage. But what I'm finding out is when I'm doing these camping trips by myself, it's that courage really isn't there. It's more like stay safe first, because yeah, that's probably another missing persons report had we gone into the woods looking for it. But yeah, thankfully we made it back to the vehicle and it never followed us. I never saw what it was, so now it's just like I'm just curious because it was definitely outside of that human range. It was just so low, and then it went to such a high pitched squeal. Like I don't know what does. So yeah, that would be my nefarious uh, Sasquatch story.
Creepy stuff right there for sure, man. And yes, when I would reach out to you to try to get you back on here, you'd be, oh, wait a second, he's missing now? Well, yeah, exactly, because that might not be the,
Yeah,
safest way to approach it. And a funny story actually is one of my good friends and hosts. She is like that. She's had a couple encounters with what we believe is a dogman, or might even potentially be a werewolf, which we can dive into more another time because there's a big difference. But either way, one time she was with some of her friends in the car and it was in the road, and she slowed down, wanted to get out. All her friends are freaking out. They're like, dude, drive, drive. She's like, no, this is so cool. They're like, it's not effing cool. And then another time she had heard some strange howling on her property, and she lives down in Tennessee and she has like a farmstead. So, and then she just decides to start walking out into the forest and then realizes this probably isn't the smartest thing. So, yes, exactly.
yeah, there's strength in numbers, and I'll say like when I was doing all my interest in Bigfoot that took place, I was always with at least one other person, sometimes four people, and we would go on night hikes, and there'd be like no fear, but at the same time you're not really able to listen for the subtleties and like the signs that something is out there with you, because you're always chatting, somebody's talking to each other, you're drinking, you're loud, you're just not aware of your surroundings, but you're also not scared of anybody else messing with you. So that is the benefit of like being camping solo and stuff. Is like, yeah, I'm just talking to the camera, so if I hear something, I can just quiet down and really intently listen for it to see what it could be, and then hopefully film it. That's like one of the main objectives here, is that my stories are great and all, and I know what I saw, but for somebody to really believe you, they want to see it as well. And even going back to that, seeing the camel man, it's like I know what I saw, and I thought I was recording. I feel so dumb that I hit the record button and it was on eco mode, so it has to wake up first, and I don't know why the camera doesn't automatically record once it wakes up, knowing that's the button you press, but it didn't. And I'm staring at it with the headlamp, and it's kind of like as the road kind of it's flat for a second, then it starts inclining. So you have the background of the road and their desert camo. It kind of like blends in. But yeah, clearly it was a person standing right there with a helmet, a vest, the pants, the jacket, uh, just everything. Just like if I'm looking up at 12 o'clock straight towards them, they're looking off towards about 10 and then down towards the ground and just being super still. And it didn't register in my mind what I was seeing at first until like 15 seconds in of just like, I was trying to focus the headlamp, right on him. So they're probably thinking like, what should I do? He saw me. Should I confront him? But yeah, it was the most bizarre thing. And then just turning around, and that's when, it's like, oh man, I got it all on camera. This is amazing. And I was like, what? It didn't record. And I turn around and it's gone. And I was like, confirmed. Yep. It's not psychosis, me making up stuff. Like, yeah, there definitely was a person standing right there. And this is like off of a forest road. And then there's like the I call them maintenance roads that are gated off. And so I basically parked off to the side of this maintenance road on the other side. I was quarter mile away, and I wasn't visible from the road, and I was tucked back into the woods, so there really wasn't any reason for somebody to be there or even see my vehicle and go and investigate, to try to find me. And I did a pretty good job of scouting the area in the daytime, and I didn't see anything or anybody. So yeah, super surprising to come across somebody out there.
That's some straight up nightmare stuff for sure, dude. Like I said, I use that example all the time, and it's just mind blowing, and also shows that, well, messed up people like to go to areas to get away from society as well. And everyone really should be careful out there for sure. But before we let you get back to your busy schedule, man, was there anything else you would like to touch base on tonight before we let you roll?
Oh yeah, I guess what I want to say to like sum it all up is I wouldn't be scared of going camping. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, I'll never camp alone," or "I'll never go camping after hearing this," but really it kind of goes back to like how you're talking about the bear is like bear attacks usually happen in areas where humans feed them, so they're expecting to be fed, and then if you don't feed them, they're they're pissed off, they're hungry, and so it's like, but if you encounter a bear in an area that's not like where people usually go and do stuff like that, then a bear doesn't want anything to do with you. I've come across 3 bears, and I was driving, and I remember, just like you said, your friend earlier, she chased out after something. I did the same thing. I saw the bear, and I was so excited to see a bear when I was following him up the forest road. Then he dove off into the woods. I just jumped out of my vehicle and started running after him, and I realized I was like, I left the keys in the ignition. I left the gun on the seat. I'm just out here trying to chase him down with the phone to get a picture. But yeah, I'd say for the most part, like you really don't have to be too worried. I would say probably go with a buddy first. That's all. Having the buddy system's good, and make sure that somebody has some experience camping. And if you're scared to kind of like go off grid or something like that, you can always just try like a normal campsite. But yeah, I'm more of like I kind of try to go places where I know there's not going to be much human influence. So when I do come across some strange noise or something like that, that I can kind of rule humans out. So yeah, I guess that's just how I would sum it up, and definitely have some more stuff to share with you. So we'll have to set up another chat.
Yes, man, great stuff. And all I can think about is this is totally fictional. Dog soldiers, but in the beginning, when they're in that tent and literally they just open it and destroy them. I've always been so scared to an extent of the whole tent thing because it's cool, but yeah, it's just a piece of whatever the fabric is separating you between nature, but I mean, at the end of the day, there are many ways things can happen. And yeah, so I mean, I've heard of people in the safety of their own shower slipping on their soap and unaliving themselves. All right. So, I mean, yeah, like you said, yeah, I mean, people don't want to stop doing things that they're enjoying, but you still, at the end of the day, just want to at least make sure that you're doing things in a proper way. And, don't really, unfortunately, rest in peace, buddy, but don't do like a Timothy Treadwell, where it was great what he did for the, knowledge of bears and such, but he legit put himself in primetime bear territory with his wife or girlfriend, and he didn't even have bear spray because he didn't believe in it. So nothing. The only way he had to defend himself was a frying pan, and well, unfortunately, it didn't end well for him and his girlfriend because, well, yeah, they were consumed by some bears. So again, if you are going to be out there, just make sure you are staying safe. And yes, also make sure to stop over to Jake's thread. We will have it up here in the description. It's got a ton of great stuff. If you enjoy live videos and you enjoy nature and exploration and people getting out there, well, that's what he's all about. So he's got some great content over there. I will have him up on the suggestion list soon. And yes, we will have to get him back on sooner than later, man. So thanks for popping in tonight, bro.
Yeah, thank you, Star Fox. You have a good one.
Ooh, you legends, you. I do adore every single one of you. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Feed the algorithm. And I will see you very soon.